stages of humanity after the Earth has been overrun here by the Bane, which is this evil intergalactic species which has been trotting on planet after planet. And we few surviving humans, we're saved by this race we call the Elo, which is one of the first intergalactic species that has not only rescued us from the Earth and brought us, in this case, to the planet Euphorius, which is one of about 5 planets we'll initially launch with, but they also have granted us access to their more advanced technology, as well as their special abilities that I'll talk about here in a little bit as well. And as you may notice here, Tabula Rasa is kind of a near-future science fiction setting game, but it also plays a lot differently than most MMPs. Ours, if you look at the user interface, it looks and acts a lot more like a real-time shooter, like a third-person shooter, than it does a traditional MMP. In a traditional MMP, you highlight a target, and then you look away from the screen down to your UI, where you lob your most damage over time against your opponent, who you just kind of stand there slogging on each other until one of you's dead. And we wanted to create a game that had where first of all your eye was always drawn through the screen to play it, as well as instead of operating the UI, you kind of play strategically with how you would engage the creatures more directly than to stand and walk on each other. Well, I hope we can demonstrate that for you today. So Victor's picking up a few of the missions that will take us out into this battlefield. Another thing to talk about battlefields is that if you think about most MMPs, the model is you go to a town, you pick up some missions, you go out in the wilderness, where there are first level monsters over here, second level monsters over here, third level monsters over here, and you farm for XP. You go back to town and then buy the next higher damage over time weapon you can find. We wanted to create a game that, instead of having this kind of what we considered a leveling treadmill, had a much greater sense of reality and interest to it. And we've done that by creating what we call these dynamic battlefields, where even without player involvement, the human NPCs, instead of just sitting around in the village handing out quests, they actually have strategies and tactics they use to try to take over the battlefield. And the Bane forces are doing the same thing. And so when you leave the human fortress, each time you go out, the distribution and status of the battlefield will be very different. And player activity will affect it, just leaving alone NPCs will affect it, we can show you some of that here today. So as he's heading out toward the battlefield, obviously he's already run into a few opponents, and the deeper and deeper he gets into it, the heavier resistance he'll likely find. Can you bring up the map for just a brief moment? We started over here in this human base. Here's where we are now. We're headed across to generally the front lines. Here's the Bane base. And there's a variety of things we call control points, you can go ahead, along the rim of this battlefield. And up ahead is actually one of those outposts that we'll see here in a minute. That was one of the abilities that he just launched off there at that opponent. And over by this outpost, you can see that it's flying a green beacon. That green beacon is actually the sign of the Bane. There are blue beacons you might see on some of the other ones, like there's a blue one over here on this side, which is the sign of the human forces. And so if he runs over here to retake this basically a control point, again more akin to what you might see in a shooter game, that will affect the spawns of human NPCs from the human base, will spawn out and reinforce this position, which will make missions in this area either more difficult or more easy to complete, depending on who controls that area of the battlefield. So we're going to run over here and switch over to the control. Then, not only now does the ebb and flow of the battlefield change the availability and difficulty of missions, but also the creatures we face, we wanted to make sure all had a unique way to fight them. Like, for example, one of Victor's favorite weapons is the machine gun here. And the machine gun works great for large, closely packed, short-range opponents, but is basically useless against these large stalkers. These stalkers have 3 different kinds of weapons. They have a turret that can face against their nearest opponent at even a pretty good range. They have a lightning attack for things that get really close. And underneath here, you can see this little blue ball that's charging up underneath them. And that blue ball, it didn't get a chance to fire out there because too many people here dogpiling on these guys. But that's an electromagnetic pulse weapon that if people don't take it down before it charges up, that drop will basically kill anyone within about 100 meters of it. And so perhaps we'll get a chance to see one of those here in a minute. But again, now that he's facing individual opponents, he's pulled out again his machine gun, which is a better weapon for this type of situation. So it's no longer that you have the one best damage over time piece of equipment or strategy. Now you actually have to pay attention to, well, how am I moving? What weapons am I using as you deploy here into the arena? Here again is another one of these stalkers. You can see it using his lightning attack on the people down here below it. We'll see in this case it gets a chance to drop that EMP device. There's obviously a lot of players out here fighting against it too, so we may not get to see this one survive either. We just don't shoot it there, Victor, and see if we get see if it survives long enough here. That guy looks like it's about setting up to drop it. He's going to go drop that EMP device, and basically has wiped out pretty much anybody anywhere nearby. And so again, you know, unlike MMPs where other MMPs where you're just going to stand there and whack, you can see how you really have to be you know, paying attention a lot more in this game. And now Victor is finally taking this guy down, and you can see we put a lot of effort into our death animations of these guys to make sure you feel like it's a good reward. And so every creature we've tried to craft where they all have a very special strategy and tactic about what you need to do to engage them and what they try to do to engage you. So now we're headed up toward the Bane Fortress, which of course is normally the most difficult place to get to. And you can see these lightning towers around here, which are kind of like a minefield of sorts to get through. And normally, we've tuned these down a little bit for E3 so we can kind of run up through these. Normally, pretty much the only way to make it through this space would be to have players go on a separate instanced mission where you go down to the power generation stations, take the power generators offline, which takes these offline for a period of time while players get a chance to come up here and infiltrate the main base. And we're headed up here we're on our way looking for a set of plans that describes the future troop deployments of the Bane. And if we can get that set of plans, take it back to human base, and that'll change again the NPC spawns. This thing, you're going to get it or you run past it? You got by it.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so yeah, so here you can see, by the way, death for us, you know, his friends can bring you back to life right on the spot, or you can go back to a hospital. We don't have anything like res sickness or losing of experience points. We actually believe that just stopping your progress is enough of pain and suffering.
Thank you.
You know, we don't think death should be a hassle. In fact, if you look at most of the MMPs, the thing that stops your progress in the game is because any monsters like 2 levels above you is basically invincible. Anything 2 levels below you is valueless to you. And I'm a much bigger believer in what I call old school Ultima design, where it's the story that's leading you through it, and it's not having solved the problem of the story that prevents you from moving on. It's not because there's a slightly tougher monster that has impeded my motion. And so the combat should be kind of the fun, exploratory challenge, but not, in my mind, the barrier to forward progress, as it is in most MMPs.